All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Forward Progress. It's Thursday, and today we're going to be talking about computer to screen systems with Dan Tone Campbell. You've seen him on probably every industry Facebook group and forum there is, right, over the years. And he's works at a shop called IDP, and he also, of course, does Tone Dan Designs. So how are you doing today, Dan?
Excellent. Business is good, both at work and at home. And so I'm happy about that. My wife's business is picking up. So I think there's an upswing right now in work for, getting away from this COVID stuff.
Right. And that's really good. And, I'm really excited. I think we've first met on the TSMBP, whatever forum was, what was that, 50, 75, 100 years ago? I don't even know, right? Yeah. Forever. Yeah. And
at the time you were just I think an artist, a regular staff artist.
Yeah, just getting started in the industry when I worked at T-Formation in Florida. And we met at an Orlando trade show. We went and had breakfast. Yeah. And you were still at Disney then, right?
I was. Yeah.
So,
you were quiet back then.
I had nothing to say.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know a lot of people are going to chime in here. And so this is, we're going to have a really fantastic discussion about computer to screen. And I want everyone to know that this is a comments question show. So if we want you to share your opinions and your experience, if you've got a question, I want you to get it out. I'm going to share with you my experience with computer to screen, and Dan's probably going to share his as well. But let's say hello to some people real quick, and then we'll get into the meat of the show. So Dan Solomon says, "Hey, dudes." Yosta says hello. By the way, Dan, if you don't know, he's live from Uppsala, Sweden.
Wow.
And it's probably 2 or 3 in the morning there. So thanks for staying up. Right. Shane's here. He says, hey. Keith Burwell says, hey, guys. And if you're not posting hello, that's okay. But we want everyone to share where you're from, what you're doing. Do you have a CTS unit or DTS, if you want to call it direct to screen? Do you have one? What do you have? Please post that so we kind of can just get an informal poll. I think that would be really cool. If you don't have a unit, that's okay. Post, I don't have it. I use film. Are you looking into it? That kind of thing. We just kind of want to know where everybody's coming at with this right now. Post, I don't have. You can't listen at the same time, Dan.
Right.
There's a 20-second delay.
I was trying to see all the comments.
Oh, no. If comments, I'm going to share, right? So
okay.
Ron Goodwin says hello. Peter says greetings from M&R Roselle. I don't know what it looks like on your end, but on the right-hand side for me, there's like comment button. I can see everything, right? So maybe that's the same for you.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Shane says he uses film, right? So my personal experience is when I worked at T-Formation, we purchased, and this is actually how I got into operations. I was the art director then. We were using an Aspect image setter, and we were using probably about $600 a week in film. And so at the time when the iJet came out, Kiwo iJet, I was very interested in that, and I was talked with Geoff McCue, right, who's the actually inventor of this whole idea, and he was working for Kiwo, and we bought a system, and he helped set it up, and he's probably one of my favorite guys in this whole industry, and because he's so damn funny, and if you know him, you know what I'm talking about.
Do you know what brand that was at the time?
It was Kiwo. It was iJet.
Kiwo.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we had that, and it totally revolutionized the shop. And it was just an incredible piece of equipment. Later, I moved on to Visual Impressions in Milwaukee, and they had one, and they actually had, I think, one of the 3rd or 4th actual units that Kiwo built, right? And to my knowledge, I think they still own it. And then I used a Kilo iJet 2 because we needed more production because we were doing about 350 screens a day. And that actual unit didn't work as well. We had a bunch of issues and we got rid of it. And then we went to M&R iMage. So my experience has been with those platforms, and that's what I know. So I don't know other platforms. I can't talk about them because I haven't professionally used them. So I'm just going to state that. So Dan, why don't you kind of share your background and your journey, and that way everybody kind of knows where we're coming from.
Okay. Well, I don't think I've ever worked anywhere at a screen print shop that did as many screens as you're talking about, like 300-400 a day. Obviously, doing installs with M&R, I ran into a couple of shops that were doing 500 and 1,000 a day. And, but like back at Disney, I think maybe we were doing 150 a day in our small shop that we had there. But J&J might have been 75 to 100 a day or something, and a couple other shops. But so I haven't been in shops with that bigger turn in the screen room kicking screens out. So let me take that back. I did work at Russell Athletics, and they're using I think one of the first machines that came out that I know of, which was called a Gerber, and it used wax, and but it was early technology, and I think you were only able to do like maybe 45 line screen at the most on the high end, and but I was able to get simulated process not indexed, but stochastic printing out of that with very good results. Because you were able to use the same size dot, which increased your resolution appearance, and so that worked out really well there. But I forget all the different places where I've used direct to screen. But my only real experience is with the iMage screens, and not the early ones, the iScreen or whatever that might have been, I think. The 3 heads, 1 heads, ST, STE2, and exposing on it with just the front bar and the exposure in the back, and those are really good machines.
Right. And those are great because you put the frame in, it images and it exposes it at one pass. So when you take the frame out, it's ready to get washed out. And that's such a time saver. And that's what I really liked about that machine. So, hey, Jeff's here. Say, hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, and we have some other folks I want to say hello to. Ben Petsy's here with Saudi. He sells them. So he's not an expert. And Keith says he doesn't have one, but he's located in North California. Thanks. Alex is here. Worked for M&R for 10 years selling and working with CTS. So thanks to everyone. And by the way, Alex says love for Geoff. So thank you so much for joining us. And please leave your comments and stuff. We want to hear from everyone. So let's get the discussion rolling. And I think if you're not using the image, computer screen or direct to screen, what do you like to call it? Do you like to call it computer screen, or do you like to call it direct to screen? Because this means the same thing. What do you?
Probably, well, either one. Yeah. Computer to screen or direct to screen. I can't see it.
They're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
Why? So here's the thing. I want to start the discussion off with why. So if you're using film, I have a shop, I'm using film. How do I know that I need this system? What is it going to do for me that film, and some people still use vellum, right? It will do for me. What should I be looking at? What problems is it going to solve? Just as a general thing, and we're not really talking about particular machines, just talking about the need to get this type of automation in my shop.
Streamlining, for one. The main thing is, does it streamline the whole process? And ask actually faster turn times on, like if you have a a color revision and you need to print out new film, it's going to be time consuming, and take it back there and get it burnt and all that. And then, if you're doing CTS, you make your change, you drop it into the folder, it rips it automatically in the back, or you tell the individual in the back it's ready, and they pull it up and rip it and send it through the machine. And probably within 10 to 15 minutes, I've seen them seem like 10 minutes, they'll be up with another revision on press.
Right.
15 minutes maybe at the most, with a fast dry on the screen, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I think is a major difference when going from film to direct to screen is in the proofing. The artists are accustomed to printing out their film right in their office, and they look at the film and they can double check, make sure all the color areas are correct, and the information is labeled correctly on the film and whatnot, and they might be able to catch that. It's another checkpoint. They can visually see it right there. Whereas if you're going direct to screen, it's gone. You send it back to the screen room and they're making a screen.
Right. Yeah. Because a real common thing, especially with art that's applied, is that word that's black is on the registration layer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how many times has that messed you up right over the years?
Yeah.
And so you don't really have, hey, where did 2020 go? It didn't print. So I think this
on every color.
Yeah. So this is where you really have to dial in your processes. But where I really think a CTS unit really helps out more than anything is just getting the work handled faster. So and to me, I think they're really cusp, and it depends on the unit and kind of things. But if you're 30, 40 screens a day kind of a shop, I think you should really be looking at a CTS unit, because you're going to find a lot of differences with your workflow. And for me, when I ran the math way back when, we had a huge problem because we were so busy. Now, some of you guys, this is going to sound really familiar. We were so busy in the screen room, we couldn't get the screen room guide to put the separations that we printed on film into a folder. So what would happen is you would have a 6 or 9 inch stack of plates, right? And then guess what? That screen that you printed, that you exposed and made 4 or 5 days ago is probably about 3 inches deep into that stack of film. And then that guy blows a hole in it, and now you got to reprint the black plate. And then you pull the thing off, and guess what? All the film sticks together. Right. Because I lived in Florida, and it's crazy humid there, right? Yeah. And so it all sticks together, and then so you'd have to reprint another piece of film, and we used an image there at the time, which was on a roll. So if you had the unluckiness to get the end of the roll, of course, the end of the roll plates don't match the beginning of the roll plates. So what happens is, to make that black plate, we'd have to reprint every single screen, right? And so now you can get these printers that just do one single sheet of film, they do that. But, that's what happened then. That's why I looked into it, right? And so, but the big issue really is, what do you do with all these films, right? It's just the managing of the film library. That's a big issue for lots of people. Oh, yeah. And then the other challenge that you solve is, because all these units, they're all different, but they all kind of work the same, where they find their home spot on the screen with whether they print with wax or they print with a wet toner, they're finding the home place, and they're starting there, and they're locking in the frame with the points of contact, right? So every single screen is now registered exactly perfect to the next screen in the edition. So when you set this up using Trilock or any other registration system, right, it's at very least, it's just micros and you're in, right? And most of the time, they're already registered, and you really don't have to do a whole lot of work. Yeah. And so your savings, a lot of times, the benefit for this isn't so much in the screen room, it's going to show up on the actual production floor. Yeah. Now, I want to mention, you touched on something that reminds me a lot of
errors that happen along the way. One being with Tri-Lock, and that's a lot of people, when they get these machines or when they get Tri-Lock, and they swear up and down that Tri-Lock doesn't work, or there's something wrong with the machine, or something wrong with the art file, and they have everything. They have the art department look at the art file and spend a lot of time on that, and they go over the machine when they can't find anything in art. And here it happened to be that the person loading the screen into the machine didn't load it as properly as they should have, and they swear up and down, yeah, I did it. I did all 8 screens this exact same way that I always do, and typically they do, but there's going to be that one time out of 10 jobs that you don't do one exactly right, and it's just human error. But they swear up and down every time that it's not them,
right? Or it's screen tension. Screen tension causes misregistration all the time.
Yeah.
All right, so we got some more folks watching. Just want to say hello. I guess Darla, is that your wife? Darla Campbell.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And Ray's here. Ray's here. So hey, Ray. And Alex says hola. Workflow, of course. Ray agrees. Better for registration systems. Alan's here. Say hey, Alan. Is there a cost difference on the black ink from DTS to films?
I would say yes, there is, and I cannot guarantee it, but I'll almost guarantee it that it's less for a direct-to-screen machine ink than it is if you're buying Epson ink for your film printer.
Well, the other thing is the film cost, right? So film is I haven't done the math in a long time. It's about $1 a plate ish, right? Yeah. And people, if you're buying film, share what that costs for you if you've done the math, right? What are you spending right now for one screen? And let's say, it's a full image, right? You're not just burning the left chest and you're going to get like 8 up, right? For a full sheet, what does that cost you? Is that about $1? What is it?
Yeah, $1, about $1.
About $1, right? So a CTS system, you don't have to buy that consumable. Of course, you have to buy the toner, you have to buy the wax, right? But it's going to be less than $1. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, wax or wet ink is going to be
right.
Yeah, and so overall, in a year's time, the consumables are not that expensive when you look at the big picture, and there are some shops that depending on what they do, whether it's predominantly left chest or predominantly full fronts, you're going to have cost differences, of course,
right.
usage, and so at the company I used to work for most previously, we did a lot of, and every job had like 95% of our jobs had pocket prints, and they were 4, 5, 6 color pocket prints. And so we used up a lot of screens, and we could have, but it was more streamlined for us to print another screen than to gang prints on the same screen. And there's different cost reasons for that, but that people have done different analysis over time. But
right. Back when Al was printing film, we would gang stuff up, try the left chest plates all in one group, and of course we cut them up with a pair of scissors and that type of stuff, and we would spend a lot of time managing that.
Yeah.
Right. And so Alan has a really great point. That's slightly more phenomenal, not relevant. So I clicked on the wrong thing. That's what threw me off. So Alan says it's all about workflow and time save, which is the point I was trying to make. Sorry, Alex, your comment is valid, just not for my thought that I had made.
So the ink cost, if I can remember, was like 3 to 9 cents per screen, depending on what you're printing. And, so that's, you just throw the film out the door. You don't have that cost anymore. Right.
And Alex also says, when it's one-offs like that, I always tell people not to go down the rabbit hole. And about registration, Ray says, lock the screen in. If you have more than one CTS unit, use one CTS on one job. Don't switch back and forth. I don't know why. So I guess we're talking about if you have 2 CTS units, all of one job
Yes.
gets printed on this job. All of one job gets printed on this unit.
Consistency. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ben says film ends up in the landfill.
Yeah.
Geoff wants everybody to know that you can calibrate the machines to match.
You can. Yes. It just, you need to have that done, make sure that you're matching at the same time. And you can even use the same save settings from one machine to the next.
Right.
Yeah, just copy them over and you're ready to go.
And then Alex says it's hard to start the justification with film. In the end, it's less than 10% of the all over ROI for CTS. All right. So, hey, great comments, everyone. Keep them coming. We're going to switch to another topic that's really going to get everybody fired up. And here you go. Inkjet versus wax. So I'm sure the manufacturers are going to say something. And I know that Ben Lasati is going to talk about lasers in there somewhere. But
yeah,
let's just keep it to inkjet versus wax right now. And then we can throw in lasers at the end. But so what's the difference between the two? Like, what should we be looking like? And you gave me a movie to show. Should we show the movie now? I mean, where should we?
I guess we could. It could apply right now, although I don't have any wax direct-to-screen examples. But I just have film and iMage direct-to-screen examples.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get that going real quick as soon as I figure out how to do it. Bear with me, people.
Yep. And I'll talk while you're doing that. The only reason
let me do the mute it. Hold on.
Okay. This one is.
Hold on. I didn't mute it enough. There you go. All right. So there's no sound. So what are we looking at here, Dan?
Okay. So I'm showing. This was done by Pierre at Blue Moon, and this is one of the award-winning prints. And I think that's his first one, and that's using digital film. I think it was off of Epson 4880, if I'm not mistaken. And this in the middle here is the iMage direct-to-screen, and the one on the right is also iMage direct-to-screen. And all I'm doing is just showing that simulated process, high-quality printing can be done on any type of machine, and it's not necessarily the output, so you don't have to worry about, is the quality going to be good enough on a direct-to-screen? Whether it's laser, wax, or wet ink, they're all going to be exceptional quality and get your job done for you and be able to you look good. But there's so many more benefits along the way from getting rid of the film that here you're able to compensate and adjust your machine. It's very versatile depending on what type of jobs your shop runs. One shop may not want to be calibrated for 65, 75 line screen simulated process, high-end type of stuff. Maybe they're only a Nike shop or a Reebok, and they're kicking out, solid athletic looking prints that are going to have special effects, and they need low mesh and 110s and 86s and so on. You can set your machines, and that's especially good for wax machines. Is they can kick out at their highest output. And as well as the wet ink machines. I think they're both going to be good. And so to me, it comes down to is the workflow, the efficiency of each. And my whole background is with, for direct-to-screen, is predominantly with M&R. And I've only heard and gotten some files from and sent some files to companies that use wax machines, and so their setups are totally different for their files, not necessarily their files, but their output, orientation and whatnot, as it pertains to the RIP process. It's a little different than what we do with the iMage machine, but so those two on the right are just good examples of. Although they weren't entered in any kind of a contest, they are award-winning type of level prints.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I'm sure that even with the wax machines, there's prints out there that have one. It's not really something that gets mentioned. Is usually they might mention what press they were running, but they don't mention what how you output your film.
So I paused this right here, Dan, so you can see this is some tiny dots. You can barely see them on the shirt. What line is this, do you think?
That's, I'm sure, is 65.
Okay.
And I'm sure it fades off down to the, I know Pierre had mentioned, especially on this print, that he was actually down holding 2%. And he might have been on a 355 mesh
right.
for one of those colors.
And this was with film.
Yes.
Right. So let's.
Yes. So the difference is that people complain about the.
Let's look right here. This is with an CTS unit.
Yes.
Right. I just kind of randomly scrolled through. Right. And this is probably the same resolution dot. Right. Don't you think?
Yes. On down to more likely 3 and 5% range there. And, it's my 3 and 5% range. What I mean by that is those curves are adjusted to a point where I make the machine work for me and the output and what I have, the screen I'm putting it on. So I may adjust the curves for a 65 line screen differently than I will for a 45 line screen.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, hey,
and that right there in the smoke, that's what we're really talking about. And this is something that you don't get to see with a lot of the exposure tests that you get, because they go from like 90 to 10%. And I'm thinking, where is the important part? The 10% and below. And that's I want to know, in my exposure, if I'm capturing the 5%. And that's really the target, is the 5 and not the 10.
Right. That's very interesting. All right, so we got more to talk about, so I'm going to just flip back to us real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and I know from using wax systems, right, that, the iJet, the Dalfit system, right, they do phenomenal too, and we don't want to just exclude them. And I know that Saudi's laser unit, I've seen lots of screens with that. I actually haven't personally used that. That does phenomenal levels of detail because, I'm going to use my Austin Powers here to say laser. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Laser.
Now, we don't really know if it does really well or not because we haven't seen a lot of samples off of it. So I'd like to entice the people who have those machines to post up examples of what they're getting out of it. Yeah, because there's some benefits to it, and I really want to get into that, see what the fine details are of the.
Sure, right. So anyway, all these units really work, but if you're doing fantastic high level stuff, right? It seems to me that you really want to be able to print a 65 line. Whether you do a stochastic index dot or a regular dot or whatever, you want to have that level. Right. But if you're just normally printing a 45 or a 50 just because you like a chunkier dot and it's not a big issue, or maybe you don't want to run super high screen, you don't want to print the 300s and whatever, that's cool too. Right. Everything works.
Yeah. Now there is a difference I'll mention that I've noticed, especially on my Epson 1430 when we're printing film. If I'm doing stochastic using the square dot, I'll notice that they come out a little more rounded or with dot gain. And I see that excessive dot gain on there because when you do stochastic or air diffusion, you don't get the dot gain compensation that can be done in your RIP. You get a raw file that is based off of the resolution that you're outputting. So that's when you start to see true gain. You can compensate for that in the RIP, but in those cases, when you're indexing or simulated doing stochastic, you don't have that compensation applied. So you'll see any gain that the machine will put out by default or by nature. And I don't know what it does with wax, but with direct-to-screen wet ink, there's a little gain, but not as much as there is on an Epson digital wet printer, wet film printer.
Right.
Wet film, but it's not wet.
This is kind of a good segue into this topic, which is art template setup tips and tricks. So, you're going to use whatever system you're going to use, right? We first have to build an art template, unless the manufacturer just gives you one for Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever. Yeah. And then, where does all your information go? Where is your image going to go? How far from the top for the screen? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also the art department thinking that has to change, because you mentioned it earlier. We no longer get to do the quality control check here in the art department room, because what happens is those problems, they're on their production floor at a really expensive rate per hour now if you don't do the pre-flight.
Yeah.
So what are your tips for all of that people can learn from?
Well, I don't know about CorelDRAW because I don't use CorelDRAW, but Adobe Illustrator has a color separation preview. And let me see where that's under. And I'd have to hit new. That's under Windows, and down toward the 75% of down the way, it's under separation preview in Illustrator. And that has to be done in CMYK file color mode because it's basically doing a multiply. And like, for example, if you, in this case, you would color your base white a color, any color that you're actually not using in the, something like pink. And a lot of people use pink. And then you add your registration, your like 0.25 or 0.125, whatever it might be. And you show that, you click on the separation preview, and you can see how that trap is going to work, and where it's not working, and what you need to adjust for, and where you need to build in your artwork. So that's a checkpoint, a very good checkpoint. In fact, it's a very good. Everybody that does Illustrator should know about separation preview.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's something that most art departments do not know about. They just, there's so many parts of your program that that's a whole nother art topic. But so that's a checkpoint. And but one important part of the difference, going back to the differences between printing film and going direct to screen, is in your art file setup, because many people used to manually break their colors apart once they're done, and then they would kind of build separations, like each different. They would either add multiple artboards for each color, and duplicate it, and then delete out all the other colors from that one color, and change the colors to white or something so they didn't print. But so that's a very manual, archaic kind of method to separation in Illustrator. Now you have to stack the artwork over top of each other and print and send one file. Now you can do it. That's another thing. There's workarounds, but the most efficient way is to stack the artwork in layers, color all the colors built up over each other, and send the file one time. And I'm so much into sending the file one time as opposed to sending 8 separate files. Mm-hmm. And some people will do the underbase separately because they just don't know how to build an underbase and then send it at the same time. And that has to do with your overprint features in Illustrator. And again, I know the features work in Corel, but I don't know how to tell you to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I always made the underbase plate like a light blue, and the wet white plate like a seafoam green, and the black plate pink. And that way I could turn colors on and off and whatever. And anything that was not those colors and was supposed to be that color is real easy to show up.
Now, why do you have your black as pink?
Huh?
Why do you have your black as pink?
Because it's like blatantly obvious.
Right. And
so,
I mean, so you're not confusing it with registration black.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would do. I haven't actually done this in forever. I moved out of the art department like in 2008 or 9 or whatever it was. And
or a process black that, different elements that were all pasted together in one file, and you got RGB and CMYK blacks and
sure. Right. I'm just talking spot color for me to keep my spot color straight. That was the method I used.
I knew why I wanted to draw it out of you.
Oh, right. And then I was always 63.4 for the angle for spot colors with an elliptical dot. And just for the moire issue, which just brings up another reason why you quit using film and go to a CTS unit is the fact that, one of the reasons that you'll find when you move to a CTS unit is that your halftone dots, if you use film, if you put it slightly off on the screen, you might introduce that moire unintentionally, but when a machine is doing it, it's always exactly perfect. Right. And you're going to really just not ever have a moire problem ever again, or a pinholes, really. Yeah. That usually comes with the vacuum table, the glass on your vacuum table. So
yeah. And it doesn't matter, again, what brand you're using, wax, wet, or laser. It's going to eliminate those pinholes. And so that's a major improvement. There's so many major improvements that, even for people who are doing 25 screens a day, if you got a rich owner and they want to spend the money on buying a direct-to-screen machine, by all means, do it.
It improves your quality. There's no doubt, right? So we got some comments here I want to throw out here. So Ray says, let's talk real manual art with Ruby Lift cut over keyline and then dupe reversal shot on a stack camera. I'm that old. I'm not old. Okay, thanks. Ray needs a RTS Ruby Lift to screen machine. And then Geoff, hey, thanks. He's genius, right? So, hey, thanks. So we got a couple minutes left, and one more kind of thing is advantages and disadvantages. So no matter what system you're getting, right, there's advantages to these, but there's a downside to everything. So let's talk about those.
You stumped me. I don't know any that I can think of any disadvantages other than cost, maybe. Probably variables. Let's throw this in there. There's some variables in your screen room. If you go with a direct-to-screen machine, you're going to have to put your screens in a machine that needs to run a print head over top of it. And so you have the variable of cleanliness on your screen, how well you keep shop. There's some shops that are very, very sloppy and some that are very, very clean. And some might use, Gorilla Tape for taping their duct tape, for putting on their screens, and dipping them in a dip tank, and the tape gets stringy, and so you got junk all over your screens. Some people use screens that they've patched up with multiple layers of emulsion or something that they've taped down over top of it, and you can't use those screens in the direct-to-screens machines because that head has to pass over very, very closely. And so there's going to be a sensor that stops the production there, and then you have to either change out the screen or correct the error or whatever that is.
Right.
And you do, I need to point out, you do have to correct that error and not just try to bypass it somehow. Because
when a print head strike, that's a really expensive problem to have.
It is, and it happens. Yeah, and people try it, and so please encourage your operators to be cautious and take the time to I'm sure the owner is going to want you to go get another screen versus trying to save that screen and make it work and ruin a print head.
Right.
And yeah. So that's a different thing. You have to keep it. I'm sorry.
The screen room, Dan, needs to be one of the cleanest rooms in the whole shop.
Yeah. And control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And typically it looks like, especially where they coat, it looks like somebody slaughtered a cow sometimes, just like,
exactly. Yeah.
And then there's dust and stuff everywhere. And of course where does that end up? That ends up in the emulsion, that ends up in the thing. So if you don't have a clean screen room, you might want to rethink, investing in this type of technology until you can learn how to clean your house a little better, maybe.
Right.
And then so Alex shared higher maintenance costs compared to a film printer. That's absolutely true. And I forget what they recommend you probably budget every 2 years for a print head. I forget what it is, but it's like every 2 or 3 years, you're probably going to be replacing a print head, depending on the machine that you have. It could be $2,000 to $5,000, whatever it is. Everything kind of goes out after a while because it's mechanical.
Yeah, and the average time that gets for a print head, I don't know about the wax, but for a wet ink machine, I've heard over the years, from before I started working there and then a couple years after, the time frame has changed. So what used to be like maybe 6 years, maybe now it's 4, or is it 2? I think as a precautionary measure, a safe precautionary measure, to err on the side of caution for M&Rs, to say, oh, maybe it's 2 years, because they don't want to advertise that it's going to be good for 6. Although I know I've been in many shops that have been running the same print heads for 6 years, and still running them, but and still on the same ink type. And that's another topic, is the different types of ink that are out there that are all each different version is designed to improve from the previous. And how long a print head is going to last is still kind of up in the air, really.
Right. Well, things are mechanical, things break, depend, your mileage will vary. How many screens are you printing? How clean is your shop? The guy or girl that's running the equipment, are they, abusive? Do they slam things in, or they, do it nicely? I mean, how do you do stuff? All depends, right? There's a lot of variables in there.
Yeah.
Advantages, though, to me, it's really about workflow. It's about speed. It's about reducing cost. And actually, to me, you get a better quality print out of it if you've got everything kind of dialed in. Mm-hmm. You're capable of so much more with CTS, I think, just because just the way these things work, right?
Yeah. Now, there's also an assumption that it's going to be more difficult to run. People get afraid of a direct-to-screen machine because it's technical. So they, in their head, they think it's going to be this major thing that they have to learn. And it's very simple. And of course, as you know, most of your people in your screen room are very young, and everybody knows how to run a computer, but and more computer savvy than most of us nowadays. But so your average screen operator is going to be very savvy in being able to operate them. And it doesn't take a genius to run those machines. And so they're very simple to maintain. Maintenance is almost nothing. It's a no-brainer. It's, you wipe down the machine and you keep it clean, and you change out the ink once a year, the container, you wash it out, flush the print heads every now and then. You get, you do your nozzle checks in the morning, whether it's wax or wet ink. You should do a nozzle check just to confirm that everything's hunky-dory, flowing nice and cohesive. And when there is an air bubble in a wax jet, in a wax machine, or a wet machine, do correct that. Make sure that you get it addressed right then, because people let it go, because your machine will run with a couple air bubbles in the line and it'll still print a good screen. But if your nozzles are clogged, any 1, 2, or 5 of them, you need to clean them out, because over time they'll build up. Right.
And I think this really goes to the culture of that shop anyway, right? So shops that I've been to shops where's the owner manual for the press? I mean, I have no idea where it is. And there's other people where they've got that preventative maintenance binder where it's got each piece of equipment with the serial number, and every single time they're cleaning or changing a part or doing something is listed in there. So then there's everybody in between, right? So it's really about how you do things. And it's just really about creating the habit of doing things correctly. And that's going to push you forward and you'll have better results, I think.
Yeah. Even today, I get phone calls and questions about the iImage machines, and I don't even work for M&R, but I get those. And, one of the first things I ask is, where's your manual? What's it say? How much maintenance do you do? How often do your maintenance? And then some of them will say, well, I don't know where the manual is, and we haven't done maintenance yet. So,
right. Yeah. Well, there's the problem right there.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up here in a minute. We're out of time. Does anybody have any last minute questions or comments? Throw them in so we can see and read and comment or answer or whatever. Please do that. So while we're waiting on that, why don't you talk about your Facebook group that you have? And I didn't write it into the comments, so you're going to have to say it real slow so somebody can write it down. If they want to join the group is about this whole topic.
Right.
So share the name of the group, and that way everybody can join.
It's kind of a big name to name I wanted to describe it very well so that, new people coming along could find it and do a search easily, but it's laser to screen, LTS, wax, and wet ink DTS machines.
Write that down. Laser to screen, what?
LTS, wax, and wet ink direct to screen machines group. I'll have to look at, somebody else can get on Facebook, or you're on there right now, and go there and copy and paste that link, please. Because I know I didn't say it right.
Right. So is that it?
I think it's DTS machines.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah, I'm sure I can do it.
Okay. So I was like, LTS, what does that mean? But that's what he said, so I'm writing it.
Yeah, laser to screen.
All right, so there you go.
There she goes.
Laser to screen, DTS, wax, and wet ink direct to screen machines group. Say that 10 times fast, will you?
Yeah. Wife for the win. So that group is not to promote one over the other. It's really for me, even me as a potential buyer, because I'm looking to buy one and I'm deciding, do I want to go laser, or do I want to talk the boss into going with a laser machine or a wax or wet? And I've said in the past, based on comparisons between all, really two of them at the time, I was going to go wet ink, and the sole reason is because I know what it can do. I'm familiar with it, and cost wise, I don't know what the cost. So take me out of that. I don't even know what the costs are between in comparison between a laser and a wax and a wet ink. All I know really, my specialty is in the iImage direct to screen machine. And I know it does what I need it to do. So that's a no-brainer for me. But yeah, I would like to be convinced and find out more about all the other types. And that's why I encourage people to post up more information. That, as we all know, that we get what the salespeople want us to hear from when they're trying to sell you, but there's operators out there. There's the after the purchase things that we need to find out about. What kind of troubles are you having with your art files, and is it receiving them and ripping them well? And are there any pitfalls to how you load screens, and how does it work with tri-lock and all that kind of stuff? And really, for me, because I'm an artist, I want to know the details of what you can get out of the machine versus another brand or something. And so it's not for me to push one brand over another. And some people might think that because of my background working for M&R in the past. And I'll be the first to say, I'll put a wax machine in this shop. I'm not biased. There is a little bit of bias. I worked for M&R for a period of time, so I know that machine well. That doesn't mean it's going to be the best machine for your particular situation. Each shop is going to be different. You may have a shop that may only need a $30,000 direct-to-screen machine, whatever that brand that might be. Maybe the machine in production-wise only does 75 screens a day. That might be perfect for your shop, $30,000 at 70 screens a day. That's,
And right now, there's a lot of shops that are, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they're closing. And you're going to find these systems at an auction or whatever. And let me tell you, they get snapped up fast.
Yeah.
So pay attention. You look at those used equipment groups. And what I would do is I would do the research, and I would figure out what is a good system for you, and then get the money ready. And then as soon as you see something, get out there and buy it. But, do your due diligence and just make sure they did the preventative maintenance and they kept it up and that kind of stuff. Because usually you want to buy a giant expensive paperweight,
Yeah.
Make sure
here's a good tip too. If you are finding something in an auction, you can get the serial number from that machine and call M&R, and they will research it. They won't tell you the back information as to who owned it or that kind of stuff, but they might tell you what year it was installed, the service that was done on it since then, if there were any repairs or anything like that. Yeah.
That's a great tip, Dan. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right. So Geoff here, and we'll close with this, says the future of DTS is definitely lasers or some form of light.
I'm sure of it. Yeah.
Because you're eliminating the consumable step.
Yeah. Only going to get better and better.
Right. So,
but how far away is that in reality?
Saudi has their unit now. It's out on the market.
To be cost effective and production friendly. Because Saudi's is fast and good. And I would buy one, especially if my boss said, yes, I can have it. I would get it. But how many does it do a day in comparison to the other ones? And so
I don't know those numbers. Hey, Ben Petsy paging you, or you were here earlier. Are you still in? Put the comment in so everybody can know, because I don't know.
and how much quality can you get from that is impactful enough for a customer to look at two of them side by side and say, yes, this one on the left looks better than the one on the right. Because if you do that now between wet ink and wax ink, it's negligible.
So Geoff says the output is the same.
Okay. The same.
Right. All right. Well, hey, we're out of time. So thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship and willing to jump in here and tackle this topic. And hopefully we've addressed everyone's questions and concerns. And it was a very great conversation. I loved it. So thank you again. I appreciate you, man.
You too.
And for everybody, we'll talk to you guys soon. Dan, don't jump off quite yet.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, everyone. We'll see you. Bye.